Okay, so we are live. So hello to anyone joining in right now. I hope that you can see the screen and you can hear me clearly. So I'll just take a few seconds to set up the stream properly so that you can see all of our panelists today, and I'll introduce them to you as well. So please can somebody just send in a message so that I know that you are able to see my screen properly. So just let me know if you can see the screen clearly and you can hear my voice clearly. And I'll just set up the stream once again. So in the meantime, I'll just start introducing our panelists. The first panelist today is Vipul Agarwal, who is currently working as an L62 at Microsoft. He was pastly working with Adobe for over 5 years and has recruited technical talent for them. We have next panelist, Khushbu Verma, who is currently a product intern at Adobe, was an SD intern at Microsoft previously, and is an incoming SD 21 at Microsoft as well. The next panelist, as I add on to the next window capture, I'll just introduce them on the way along. So the next panelist we have is Salman Chishti. I know that some of you would say Salman or something, but I know the right pronunciation here. So Salman is currently working with Microsoft as an intern again, and he's been involved in a lot of activities. All the details are present in the description below, where I have also put in the link to his LinkedIn profile. You can go check that out. Same with all the panelists. I have put in the LinkedIn profiles of Khushbu, of Vipul, and Salman, and also of our final panelist, which is Simba Nyakam Bangwe. I hope I pronounced that right. I did take some time to practice it. He's again currently an intern with Microsoft as well, Microsoft UK that is. So, hi to all of you. How are all of you? I'm talking to our panelists right now. So, I will be waiting for a few people to join in. Until then, all of you would like to add anything to your introductions that I just gave? Anything? Yeah, it's in the description below. And in the meantime, let's just ask you something. Have other people asked you for resume reviews in the past? Have people reached out to you personally to help them review their resumes? If yes, could you just share anything that you've seen very awkward on their resumes, or something weird, or a different kind of an experience? Starting with Vipul. Okay, wait a minute. I think wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let me just fix something here.
So I think people were not able to hear you. So could you just speak something again so that I could check whether people are able to hear you now or not?
Mic check. Hello. Can people hear me now?
Wait a minute. I think there's some lag.
Okay. So you mean people on YouTube are not able to hear me, or were you on Meet also not able to hear me?
I was able to hear you on. Yeah, now it works. Now,
Okay.
now
So so you want me to repeat the story whole again?
at least one of them, I guess, not both of them. It'll
Okay.
be too long.
I think the first one is important because I was talking about this particular incident where there was one candidate I was interviewing, and she had written in bold and capital font that she is already placed in some XYZ company, and the font was bold. It was bigger than any other character in the resume, and it was on the top of the resume. So that is the first thing you'll read about that candidate on the resume for sure. And the what I was suggesting is that I was not properly able to interpret what is supposed to convey. Is it supposed to convey that that she is already placed in some company, so she is good enough to be accepted in any other interview, or was it trying to convey that she has a backup of sort even if she gets rejected here, so she doesn't care about appearing for this interview? So
So I think the takeaway from that is do not mention any other opportunities that you have.
do,
Do
do
mention which you're currently working.
do it at your current workplaces where you have experiences, but if you have other offers, use it after you get accepted for the company to compete for your compensation. But having it on resume is wrong. And the other story which I was going to tell, I'll quickly wrap it up, is basically once you are when you are building up your resume, use your font and colors in a way that once you print it, they are, I mean, people can still read it. I have seen one of the incidents where we had some data in Excel and there was mismatch in resume once printed because the font color was so light when we printed it on using black and white printer. The characters actually got omitted, and the details that got omitted were morely related to the experience of the candidate. So do use colors with some precaution.
All right. And Khushbu, would you like to add another story that you would have seen on anybody else's resume?
Sure. So recently, few months back, I did a community resume review, and I noticed that there are some mistakes which a lot of people commonly make. The first one is that they don't add enough descriptions, or for instance, if they're talking about their particular experience, they talk about the project. They say that, okay, I have built a game which does this and this. So I've usually suggest such people that they should always mention what was their role and what they did in that role or what they contributed to the project instead of writing a description of the project. So this is one thing which I've seen very commonly, and I think a lot of recruiters are interested in knowing what a particular person has contributed instead of what the project was.
All right. So I think a lot of resumes that we have shortlisted for today do face that same problem as well. So I hope that people would be learning from that. And moving on, Simba, would you like to share any anecdote of yours?
I think just to echo what Kushbu just said, it's employers want to know more about the impact you made in a project. It's good to talk about your project, but they want to see, what impact you made, how much impact you made. So, giving an example of talking about numbers. So I helped 50 people do this. They're more interested in saying the amount of impact you've made and not particularly the end goal of the project was a success. So I think that's something key that I've picked up on a couple of resumes that I've seen.
Okay, so this is already helping me because on my resume as well, it mentions more about the project overall and not my role. So I
Mhm,
guess it's helping me already. So Salman, would
mhm.
you like to add anything from your experience?
I would like to talk about the sort of just the format of resumes in terms of like, when applying, perhaps from an international point of view, you may have people who have different expectations for what they put on their resume. So if you want to apply internationally, maybe to the US or the UK, it's a good idea to perhaps omit a picture, to not have any picture of yourself on your resume. I know in India, for example, it's maybe common to have that. But if you're applying for international roles, maybe you're applying for US or UK, then I think, it's a good idea to not just think about whether or not you should have a picture, but think about what are the, general rules for applying to certain companies. So yeah, just don't blindly just use the same resume for every single
Yeah, I think
application,
the
but look
point of
into that.
making is quite good because while I was shortlisting resumes, I saw a lot of resumes who had the pictures, and I felt like it was just gathering up unnecessary space, and their entire resume was 2 or 3 pages. While just
Yeah,
by removing
yeah,
the picture, it went up to like 1 page, so that
yeah,
was much more convenient.
yeah. So, I mean, the takeaway from this point is that the one page of resume that you have, and ideally resume should be one page until you really think it cannot fit into that. You should treat as the land property which you have, and you should try to utilize it very judicially. So,
On that note, I'll just say out the format for today. So I received over 100 resumes, out of which I have shortlisted 10, and
okay.
these 10 will be reviewing at least 5 today, or whenever we hit the 45-minute mark, whatever happens later, not
Mhm.
first, right? Okay, sorry for hogging up so much of your time. Anyway, so I've hidden all the names, all the photographs that we had, and all the personal details as such.
Great.
And as
Was the shortlisting random?
yes, it was completely random. I just took
Okay.
out like I generated a Python script to to generate some random numbers, not a Python script, like 2 line of code,
Perfect.
and I
Perfect.
just
No
took
problem.
those resumes, and I've hidden all the names and everything, as you can see in the first resume as well. There's no name, there's no contact information, and that's how it's going to be for all the resumes. So I'll just ask two of you to give your advice on that particular resume, and then we can move on to whatever the other two want to add. Okay, all right. So I think
Sure.
the first resume, do you want to take it voluntarily or should I just assign it to two of you?
I would prefer if you assign.
So how about
Yeah.
go with this with Vipul and Khushbu going first for this resume?
Sure.
So just let me know when you like see the basics of it. How I am just going to keep it out there. So all of you, if you feel like your resumes are similar to the resume on the screen, you can ask
Mhm.
doubts in the comment section, and then we'll take up your doubt related to that resume or how you could refine your own resume based on this. Right. So whenever you see something anomaly or something you feel that it's too good or it's too bad, you can just start commenting. I'll just keep on scrolling very
Mhm.
slowly.
Okay. The first thing over here, what I would like to comment on is, unless and until you really feel that there are less points for students, there could be less points that you can add on resume. I'm sorry. So until unless you really feel that it is very critical to add your schooling and grades, I would prefer them to be omitted, at least for the Indian industries. I mean, they don't add any thing to the reviewer. So I
And
have seen a
another
lot of
thing
I've
I
seen a
feel,
lot of resume having school names and the scores they got in school.
and as you mentioned, as I think Khushbu, Salman, and Simba, all three of them were speaking earlier. So here also, like industrial exposure, when we see here, it's just an outline of what was the work overall, and not what they've contributed. Okay, I don't know what is happening. Okay,
Yeah, so for college students, I can understand that they still would want to end their school marks, but unless and until you were very like a gold medalist in school, that might be worth adding. That shows your zeal in education. You can probably omit because it might not add that value to the reviewer of the resume. So you can utilize that space to add some more important information if you feel like. That
Yeah,
is my take.
uh, yeah. To add my take, first of all, I would like to mention what I like in this resume. First of all, it looks clean, and
Okay.
the fonts which are being used are consistent. So it's not like that the fonts are different or the font sizes are different. So on that note, the resume looks in a consistent state. And if I talk about the sequence of the in which the person who has this resume has mentioned, like first of all education, then experience, then projects, I think the flow is good if you're a new grad or if you're still a student, because first of all someone wants to know your education and your experience level. So for new grads, mostly I have noticed that putting your education first is good. And to talk about
Right.
what I don't like a lot is in the projects, you can see that the projects are not very descriptive. It just shows like what was the title of the project, and someone who's looking at the resume does not know what was the role of the person or what they did in that project. So, as I was mentioning earlier, it is not very conveying of what was the role that you played into that
Right.
project.
Right. Right. To add to that, there is one column for projects and the other one is for position of responsibility. So if I was the one curating this resume, I would have clubbed this as my experience and tried to expand on what project did I undertake or what responsibility did I undertake for some particular position. So rather than saying that I did this just this project and I also had this position, I would have tried to explain that when I had this position, my actual roles and responsibilities were this, or I did this so and so project. So that I could link basically what these roles and responsibilities and how they map to projects the candidate has done.
Okay, so Simba and Salman, would you both like to add anything to add? I mean, I have
Yeah,
one review as well. If you want to add first, go ahead, please.
sure. I agree with Kishbu that it's very good and the format is very nice. It's readable. It's got like you've got consistency with the headings, which it might be weird to compliment that, but you'll see loads of resumes which have like different fonts and yeah. So in this case, that's really good. What I would say is if you can just scroll up a bit, Seema,
Yeah, I will
on
solve
the
that. Yep.
thank you. So yeah, in the industrial exposure, so it mentions like completed paid virtual internship at Collins Aerospace. I think that's great, but when I see that, I want to know what that person did there. What impact did they have? What did they do in their internship, which makes them a valuable member for that company, right? Because you know, anyone can end up doing an internship, right? But maybe not anyone, but what did they do which really made a difference? Because it could be that they worked on a pull request, maybe they fixed X number of bugs, maybe they've you know how many users did they affect, things like that. If you have multiple um, experiences, at multiple companies, maybe put a few bullet points for that company saying, okay, you've done this and this. You don't have to say that for all companies, because what happens is people tend to go from maybe a startup and then they go to a company, another company. Their latest experience is perhaps their best. So you don't have to do that for all companies that you've worked at, but maybe your latest one, add a few bullet points saying what your impact was. But
Thank
apart
you,
from that,
Salman.
I think it looks great.
And Simba, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I don't know if this is maybe I'm being very I don't know what I'm talking about, but under the objective, I'm not too sure if when you're applying, you want to put an objective there. Personally, I think, well, at least in the UK, Salman, correct me if I'm wrong, it's sort of more of a personal statement. So it's a statement to try and give yourself out to the recruiter, something that's going to catch their eye. So with an objective, I'm sort of like, I want to know about you. I don't know what you want to get from me reading your resume. I want to know more about you and what you've done. And then I think this person has done quite a few projects, quite a lot, and I guess this could help in in his search of a placement or a full-time role. But just as everyone was saying, it's putting more information about the projects. So it might be a case of then removing some of these projects from your resume and then focusing on two or three, because remember, we want to keep it 2 pages max. So giving more information about the projects, and then not putting just a whole lot of projects, just focusing on a few.
All right, thank you. So there's just two things that I feel that I'll also add. Okay. So first of all, I can see that in fourth semester, in second semester, instead of putting what semester, put the actual timeline of the project, like
Yeah,
July
yeah, yeah.
2020.
True.
Or otherwise, instead of putting when you did it, put more about what you did in it. Like if I see single pass heat exchanger, like I don't know what it is, and I would like to know more. So out of your resume, how would I come to know what was your role in it? But this, I think, has been already discussed in
Yeah.
detail.
The
So
timeline
I
is a valid point, Simant.
I'll just move on to the next resume, right? So one second,
I would just like to also add, like, if you want, like, add your GitHub, because recruiters can go click on that and they can actually
Yeah.
check what
I
your
also had
resume
my
is about
LinkedIn
your
link on my resume because I feel I maintain LinkedIn better than my resume. So, and
yeah,
that
adding
is a
links
good point actually,
obviously.
Salman. So now since we are digitally creating all these documents, and sometimes you might print it, but you also need to understand you are digitally creating this document. So if you want to add certain links hidden somewhere in the document, you can surely do that. So, for example, if you're mentioning certain projects and you have a website related to it, you can add that link as on this resume that I can see.
Yeah, so moving on to the next resume, already one point covered here. The links have been added, so that's great. So adding more, let's just give the floor to Salman and Simba for this one. So please let me know what are your thoughts on this resume. I'll just
So
scroll slowly.
yeah, sorry. So with these links, are these links to the companies that have been mentioned, or what are these links going to?
I'll just click
Careful,
on
it
one.
might say their name if
I'm
you
not
go
not
to it.
gonna wait. Let's see.
Yeah,
So it's the company, I guess. Yeah, it's for Nick
yeah.
dot in. Yeah, it's the company.
So I don't think it's relevant to be putting links of other companies in your resume. I'm not too sure what you'll be trying to get out of that. Yes, maybe for them to know what the company does, but I think what you've done in the company will speak for itself. So, for example, software asset management intern, you don't necessarily need to then put a link to Ernst and Young. So, I think that would be the first thing I would say. If you're going to put links onto your resume, it's probably for your um, website, personal websites, or LinkedIn.
Right,
I'm not too sure about
right.
companies.
And Salman, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, generally, it seems good in terms of the impact. I mean, they're making sure that they're using like the verbs like developed their system, or um, you know, I achieved, or things like that. So they have that sort of verb usage in there. They've got the education at the bottom, which seems good. So the way I think about education and experience is, if you have enough experience to put above education, then do that. If not, yeah, do the reverse. And they've done the reverse here, which is good. If we scroll up to the top, the only concern I'm thinking about is just the formatting looks a bit inconsistent.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So
With
basically,
like
don't
the
focus so much on the formatting, because you see, a lot of these resumes I received with the names. So they were originally, PDFs, but then when I tried to omit their names, I mean, of course, formatting got a little bit here and there. So don't focus
Mhm.
that much on formatting, I'll suggest. But like, the overall formatting, as in what should be there and what shouldn't be, but their alignment, for example, should not be of much concern, because those could have been destroyed due to them getting converted from PDF to a doc. You know.
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
I'm thinking more in terms of like punctuation.
Yeah.
Um, like the message I get from here is that there's like, you have commas without space, with like no
Mhm.
spaces and things like that. Like, yeah, things like that
Yeah, like here you can see
basically.
Python,
And then,
5 comma
Mhm.
spaces. There's no spaces there.
yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
yeah, and then like you have the name of the company, and then there's no indent.
Mm.
Um, or like I mean, that's fine, that's preference, but like the alignment to me, again, yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Maybe it's just because
Anything
of
to
the way
add
you've
there, guys?
edited
If
it.
you want to add anything.
So I would just like to add two things. One thing is that if they would have added some numbers or statistics in the experiences of internships, that would be great. For instance, if they increase the performance of something, they can just mention increase the performance by 10%, because those numbers show like the actual impact that you made. Secondly, the internship experiences look good, but again, when we talk about projects, the person has mentioned what was the project instead of what they did in the project, and I think that is something that can be worked on. Yeah, that's all
Mhm.
from me.
Yeah,
And
and
with
I think,
what?
sorry.
Okay,
Um, yeah. Yeah, sorry. So I think it's that inconsistency as well. I'm just looking at the projects. There's some with punctuation after the name, and then there's some which don't. Then you've got some which are saying they're ongoing. So if you're going to say the project is ongoing, you might as well be putting the dates of the other projects and when you've done them as well, just for consistency basis.
would you like to add anything, Vipul?
Yeah. So I'm thinking from a perspective, if I had this resume of a candidate, so all the information mentioned in the resume is quite interesting, but there are some issues here and there. For example, I would have, uh, if the candidate mentioned the timeline again with the project, that would have been great, so that we know how much time did the candidate spend on project and what candidate was actually doing while he or she picked up this project. uh, was the candidate a student, was it involved in some research, or what else? And if these are associated with the experiences above, which I mentioned above, these project should have been explained above only. And so that is one. Then there, if you could scroll down.
Yeah, probably. I
Hmm.
mean, this is all there is. There's nothing more in this. This is ended with education.
Great. So the format wise, I'll say is pretty simple, and thumbs up for that. All the information the candidate wanted is there on one page. I think that is good. And education wise, things and achievements, how they are written, is also good. If the candidate is a fresher, I would have preferred if education is on top. uh, if candidate is experienced here, which doesn't seem to be, then otherwise I mean, education, keep having the education at the bottom is good, because whenever you are interviewing a fresher, you want to know uh, where the candidate is currently studying, or where how from where the candidate graduated.
All right. So from the last resume, the positives are good formatting. I mean, and the
Yeah,
last.
yeah. I found it simple, it's readable, I can read it, and it's conveying what it wanted to be. Other than the corrections everyone has suggested, it seems good.
All right. So moving on to the next resume. So I'd give this to Simba and Khushbu. So you both of you could please continue upon this resume. And as I said, the names have been changed. Name changed because all the contact information has been hidden. So please continue.
So this resume looks pretty good to me because if I talk about the way it looks pretty consistent, and I can see what each section is. And also, he or she has highlighted the keywords, which is good and it's catching my eye. Also, what I really like is that they have mentioned the tech stack that they use in each project. So it helps when they're talking about their experience. We can like know what was the particular tech stack that was being used. And as I can also see that some stats have been included, like they wrote 20,000 lines of code and all of that. And also they have mentioned the links of GitHub with each of their projects, as if someone wants to go to their GitHub profile and see those projects, like what is the quantity of code, if they have added some screenshots. I think that is really good. So so far I think this resume looks the best to me. But yeah, over to Simba.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is it, it actually caught my eye. I think it's this thing of, I think we've always been told that when a recruiter opens your resume, they are going to take 6 seconds on your resume. So if it doesn't catch their attention, most likely, you're going to go under the pile and it's going to take a little bit longer. But yeah, I think I like the structure and the way it's flowing. This person has also put in the dates of what they've done and when they've done it and how long it took. As Kushbi said, they also put in some stats in there as well. I think the only thing that would they would have to think about is if this is printed out in black ink. If all the colors will come out, I think, as people was talking about before. So I think this is something they would want to think about a little bit. But I think this is a very, very good one.
There is one doubt from the comment section. I'm just taking it up right now. This trend
Mhm.
section in resume shouldn't be there. I mean, I thought it looks like a show off in written format. No offense to whoever's resume this is. So
Which section
Arthad,
again?
the strengths section. So there
Oh,
was a
I see.
resume which had the
Yeah,
strength section.
I think the first one.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so strength, and then there was another section which we did not probably read. It was some declaration. So,
Yeah.
as per, I can speak for the companies I have interviewed for. Declaration section is not needed. I am not sure about the companies outside if they want it or not. But whenever you are registering for an interview, I think they'll take your declaration anyway. So having it on the resume itself might not matter. Talking about strengths, so your projects and your experience will actually show your strengths if you're writing it that way. So you don't necessarily probably want to call out your strengths. And anyway, I mean, if I cannot speak for everyone, but if I am reading your strengths, I would not probably pay that much attention to them, because those are more or less the points which we pick from some other blogs other places. So make sure your experiences show what you want to convey as your strengths. That would be my suggestion here. So
Okay.
yeah,
So,
the comment on YouTube is right. It is not needed.
so Salman, would you like to add something to that, or can we just move on to the next resume, which is out here on the screen?
Um, I guess we can just move on to this. Should I
Yeah, sure, Salman, you
start
can just
commenting on
continue
this?
with this resume. I think Salman and Vipul would be good to review this one.
Okay, sure. So, what immediately screams at me here is that we've got capital letters. That's not needed. If anything, capital letters might just seem like you're shouting at me. So perhaps it's like giving the wrong impression. The font inconsistencies, and yeah, just general
I'm just
layout.
commenting that all
Now
of these
define a
in
read it.
blue, they are actually linked to the project, right? So these Newsify is underlined. It is the link to the project. So that's a good thing over there.
Yeah. So yeah, in here there are these, yeah, so these are projects. Do they have any experience or anything listed on the resume? Okay, yeah. So here, I would preferably put your experience near the top, above projects. That's preference. Because if I'm gonna hire someone, right, you want to see what they would do in your company because they're gonna be potentially working for you. So I would put that near the top. Projects are like something you do on the side. Um, uh, yeah, that's it. But yeah, in terms of like consistency, like at the top there's loads of capitals, and then here we've got like I have this layout where you've got lowercase, and yeah, so yeah, I think it's good if they just maintain the consistency. Maybe add a bit more in terms of how they've impacted the company again, because
Okay.
it's more of what did you do, but what impact did it have is the question.
All right. So Salman, could I just request you that whatever you're speaking, could you be a little louder? I think there is a bit of a problem. Like your voice is a little low, right? Anyway, so moving on,
Yeah,
Vipul, would you like to add anything to what Salman said?
Yeah, sure. So I would not review the content here in the sense that I would not tell what content is right or wrong here, but I would tell the organization. If I were to score, I would score 0 here. And as Salman said, I mean, if I am reading this resume, it would feel like a struggle for me to capture the information mentioned in the resume. So, and that is not something you might want your interview to go for. So, for example, if you are already interviewing something, then you have made the initial cut where they have shortlisted you for the bar which they have. It could be the experience they're looking for or the university threshold they have. Now your interviewer would be interested in knowing the experience which you already have and details about the projects you have undertaken, and going through this resume, extracting that information and extracting the information about anything per se looks a struggle. So that is my first takeaway. If you are not good at creating your resume, create it in a tabular format. Download some resources online, use latex or something, use Word, create tables on it. That would be my suggestion. I mean, you need
I
to
think adding on that,
put some effort.
I'll just point out one thing. So there is a format available online, which was the previous resume we saw, which was most liked by our panelists so far. It was made on a DD format. I'll just type it on the comment section for all of you that you can look at. So it's
Sure.
DEEDY. That's the format. It's known as DD format. Okay. So I think that looks quite good. And I think that in this resume, what I personally feel is that in the last resume also everyone pointed out that you don't need the technical skills section or the strengths section like here, because it will be highlighted already in your project, right? So, Khushbu and
Um.
Simba, do you
So,
have anything to add?
Simon, technical skill might still be relevant for the places where you're applying to. Depends upon the situation. Strength is for sure not needed. That's what my understanding is.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
right.
think technical skills are fine. One thing that really bugs me is that they have put their personal details towards the end. So if someone wants to know their personal details, if a recruiter is looking at their resume and they want to contact them, they'll have to find their personal details in this resume, which is something not good. And
Yeah. Yeah.
apart from that, obviously, the formatting is really poor.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just point it out. So the name and the number were in the beginning where I put omitted instead. In the
Oh,
end,
it
the
seems in
person
the
who
header. It's in the header, I think. you put omitted in the header.
Yeah. But in the
Mm.
personal details below, there were things like address. I mean, so that's
Okay.
why I had to omit it. So
Yeah,
in
that's again
personal details,
irrelevant.
Yeah,
other
We don't
definitely.
want
interfaces,
to visit your home, so yeah.
Mhm.
other interfaces like that were involved in this resume. I remember it particularly because I find it quite awkward. Like, why would someone put their address there, right? So
Mhm.
okay, okay, and just to be clear, I think a lot of negative points were pointed out. All of this is not to bash your resumes out; it's just to help you out about on the things you can improve. So please take it in all the good sense and not as if like someone is bashing you out.
Right,
So,
right.
on that note, Simba, would you like to add anything?
I think if you go to the very bottom where they put their education, I don't think that's something you'd need to put in a table. That's something you could have they could have written and then put a little bit more information about what they actually did. For example, in that semester, because it just looks really out of place having a table there. And I think this resume is almost the other way around. So the experience has to be at the top, your education at the top, and then you go to your projects and everything like that. So I think they should basically just switch it switch it around a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
can I
I
just
would
add
still
a
say
small
education.
thing?
Yeah, just one
Sorry, go
point,
ahead.
Salma. Yeah, the education section in that resume still seems to be the most organized section to me. So if I were to
Mhm.
know, if I'm looking for what school or what university was that candidate in, and what years did he or she graduate, that is something
Mhm.
which I can abstract easily as compared to any other section in this resume. So I
Mhm.
mean, use tables if you want to. For example, if you want to place your experience labels at one at the left side and your timelines on the right side, you can do that. And hide the one thing you can do is you can also hide boundaries of the table where necessary and display them where important. So that will, I think, improve this resume to a good extent.
I think what here is that a lot of universities recommend their recommended formats for their students. So, like even my university or college recommend the format which they, I mean, advise to sort of follow, right, when you are presenting in an
Hmm.
on-campus
Hmm.
environment.
Okay.
And in those resumes, there's mostly a table for education. Mostly,
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
all the universities I've seen, I think this also belongs to that university's format in the
Hmm.
same way. I think, and that's why it's in the table. I'm not sure, although, but I think that is the reason it's in the table because it was the
Mhm.
format presented by their respective university.
Mhm.
So,
Sure. Yeah, I think Selman wanted to add something on this one.
Salman, please.
Oh yeah, so I was just gonna say that if we go to the previous resume, it's just that it's got the content, right? But if we just scroll up, um, again, yeah, so this is just it's gonna be constructive feedback. But scroll down a bit in the technical skills. So this is potentially like an example of think about how you use your space, because if you look at how much white
Right.
space there is on the right hand side, there's so many examples of resumes which might have like a little box, like you could use a text box or something and then like condense that. So you could make this resume one page. Like people will say, I can't fit my resume in one page, I have too much experience, etc. But like you see, like for example, loads of people, maybe you could see Elon Musk's I don't know if it's real, but there's a resume thing that he has which fits on one page. So try to use your space to as much as your advantage as possible, because like here, this doesn't have to be on like 10 lines. You can change your spacing, everything. There's like huge gaps between things, between blog fee and technical skills. So just
Yeah,
think about the
I
general
completely agree with that.
layout
I
like
think
that too.
there's a lot of white space over here. Yes, a resume is not
But
supposed to have a
good
lot of
stuff.
white space. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
let's move on to the next one. And would please Salman and Khushbu take up this one?
Okay, so can we scroll down a bit?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Okay, so the first thing that I would
Again,
like
this
to
one has
point
some
out is I
formatting
think,
issues.
yeah, formatting is fine, but I think that the sections orientation, like the placement of the sections, is fine because if they're currently a student, they have mentioned education first, and I can also see projects and work experience. That is fine. And also, I can see that they have added some details of their positions of responsibility in the education section itself. If they could have put that in a separate section, that would be fine. If others can add to that, that's just my personal opinion. Apart from it, I think the skills section is fine. They have actually segregated, like for instance, which programming languages they know, which mobile development, what they know in mobile, and all of that. Uh, and again, the formatting thing, like they haven't put spaces between the different skills that they have. That could have been improved. One good thing that I like is I think it's the link to the projects again on GitHub, which is something good. So yeah, that's from me. And if you have such huge descriptions of project, try to put that in bullet points so that it's more readable.
All right, thank you. And Salman, would you please add something if you want?
Yeah, no, I agree with Kushbu's points there. I think it's generally quite good. Can you just scroll up, please? I just want
Yep.
to
1 second.
see the top. Yeah. So, yeah, generally, I think it looks quite good. In terms of the the formatting, this is just I guess it's just consistency, right? So quiz app is huge compared to like skills and education. Apart from that, though, I think it's good. Like very very good education, like getting good grades. That's something like it's probably going to stand out to a lot of the recruiters. So yeah, just maybe tweak a bit of the
All right.
sizes, but and yeah, what Kushbi said about bullet points, I think would be good.
Mhm.
So what both Salman and Kushbu say is that everything should be in bullet points. I think, as you can see, that programming language, C, Python, that. Now it's a little bit hard to make out whether data structures and algorithms are a different part or like continuation. So all of these things could be in bullet points, right? And again, for the description also, like instead of using full sentences, use bullet points as in to to just lay out what the outline of the project is instead of putting out large sentences, right? And Vipul and Simba, would you like to add anything to that?
I think with projects, I would only say we don't see the impact that this person did personally. That could be something they highlighted. I would expect it to be in there, um, with so much words in there. So I would be expecting to know what impact they made in the project as well. So I think that's the only thing I would say. But other than that, I'll agree with the other guys. This is a very good resume.
All right, thank you. And Vipul, do you have anything to add?
Yep. So it's a good resume, and I agree with Simba. So with projects, if it would have been great if the candidate mentioned what all responsibility did he or she hold uh, while working on those projects, and more or less the content on the resume is good, and I appreciate that. And the only issue I see this with this resume is the formatting. So when you are using two columns for your resume, I would prefer if on the left side, I mean, you have content categorized and segregated in those two columns. For example, on your left side, you have your education, achievements, and probably tech skills. And on your right side, if you have more related to your project and experiences. So right now, the projects are overflowing from left column to the right column. So you need to basically, that would make the content more organized. So otherwise,
Mhm.
it's good. Yeah.
All right. So we'll just, I think we've almost hit 45-minute mark when we started reviewing. So we'll review one or two more and then we'll just end the session here. I don't think there's a lot of doubts coming in right now. So if you have any doubts, you can just put them in the comment section and then we'll move on to the doubt section. Otherwise, we'll just review one or two more resumes and then we'll end the session. And I have some reveal about the incoming sessions that we have on the channel, right? So this resume, would Khushbu and Simba take it?
Yeah, sure. I think first thing, where they're putting their email and mobile, if they have a LinkedIn, it would be a nice place to add that in as well. Not too sure about putting those in a table though. I think those would look or seem a little bit better when they're just below the name or whatever was at the top, and not necessarily in a table. In terms of education, I think, yeah, as you guys said, it makes sense having that in the table. Um, with I think with technical skills and certifications, um, actually that's okay from where I'm seeing. With projects, I think they'll put more emphasis on their impact, what they did in the projects. So I'm just getting for example, the second one. I'm just getting the name of the project. I don't know what they did, how they impacted that. But yeah, I think I'll let Kushbu go through the rest.
So I agree with the points that Simba mentioned. What I would like to add is that, for instance, if you have multiple projects, you might want to pick up the ones which have the most impact, or which you can, really explain your contributions to. And for instance, like as Simba mentioned, we don't really understand what was the game development project all about. So yeah, if you are lacking space and can't fit everything into one page, it's better to describe something rather than putting just the titles of everything. And then I would mention that also the same thing with recognitions and awards. If you feel that the resume is overflowing the one page thing, you can just pick up the most important stuff. And because your resume is representing you at a company and you just want to show what's the best, and can we just scroll down a bit?
Yeah, this is the end of resume where constant volunteer.
Okay.
That
Okay. Yeah, I think that's it from my side. If Vipul and Salman could add anything.
yeah,
Just before, I think relevance as well, dependent on where they're going to be doing this application. Some of these you don't need to put in. For example, runners up in college basketball. If you're coming for a role in tech company, I don't think those will be important. So it's just don't have what did they call it? A resume that fits for everything. Just make sure it's very tailored. Some of these won't be needed.
Yeah, yeah.
would Salman and Full add anything?
Yeah, could you scroll up?
Yeah,
I mean, the first page I would say at least looks good to me. The first section, education, looks good, and technical skills and certification, though looks cluttered, but it's still good. I am able to capture whatever the candidate would have wanted to basically show on the paper. And if you can scroll down a bit. So project wise, again, now as Simba and Khushbu mentioned, details of the project would have been better in this case. And also again, guys do guys and girls do mention the timeline where you are working on those projects. And then there's last section is societies and organizations. So if you have worked on some organizations or societies within your campus or outside your campus, and they are related to the work or the role which you are looking forward to, then these should also be under your experiences. Even if you were working even if you were volunteering in certain societies, that is at least my understanding. And if that directly impacts your experience, they should be under your experience. Otherwise, if they are something like philanthropy job you were doing, or some volunteering which is not very relevant to your resume, then you might want to consider if you should probably be using the real estate you have on your one page. Or even if you want to mention it, then highlight it that this is your uh, extra stuff that you picked up, so that so in a way representing that you were doing multitasking while also doing some your academics or your project related work.
and Salman, would you like to add anything, or should
Yeah.
I?
Yeah. Could you just scroll up a bit? I just the middle section.
Sure.
There were like, yeah, cool. Yeah. Um. So here, so you have your product section. This is perhaps a recurring theme here, that if you have projects, then it's a good idea to link your projects. Um. Now this is a good example of like listing maybe a couple of projects. If you have loads, then you don't have to list all of them, and then you just link to your GitHub and they can see all. In this case, yeah, they've mentioned a few, and then they can go into detail there. Um, I agree with Simba's point in the sense where, depending on where you're applying, like you don't have to put every single thing you have there, um, and essentially, yeah, that yeah, I think it's good. I think there was something I was going to say, but it's kind of gone off my head. But yeah, I think it's
So,
good. It's good.
one thing I'd like to add to this
Maybe
is, see, with the formatting, as Vipul has already mentioned, that you should use your real estate, that is the one page. I think things like head girl of the school or joint secretary, like when you enter your college life, I think it's sort of a clean slate that you have now. So instead of adding all these things, you should just like scoop it up into one page rather than adding all this information which might not be relevant to any recruiter, right? So that's what I feel. I don't know if you and if you like want to contradict that or not. Right? But I think that all of these could be omitted, like head girl, joint culture secretary of the school. I think this could be omitted easily. For example, gold medal for best outgoing student. I don't think this is relevant to any opening after you've entered a college.
Mhm.
Yeah, so for depending upon the role you are applying to, some of your achievements might be relevant, might not be relevant. But I would still say for a fresher who is currently applying for first job straight out of college, and if you don't have a lot of things to add, it is okay to add something which shows your leadership responsibilities, because every company looks for certain leadership responsibilities. And more or less, if there are some things which you have done in your past and you don't see that it is very relevant to the job you're applying to, have it on your LinkedIn, post a link to the LinkedIn as Simba mentioned, and I think that would work. As a personal experience or personal note on this one, I if someone mentions LinkedIn, I do visit before interviewing. I cannot speak for everyone again.
So thank you, and we'll be just reviewing this last resume. Before that, we have a doubt from the chat section. Like they asked that they are currently only in second year and they do not have any work experience. And what should they do? Should they add that section or omit it? What should they do? They're
Can
just in
I
second year.
comment here in terms of
Yeah, sure.
um in terms of like experience doesn't have to mean working at a company now. We're in this digital era where if you're applying for computer science, you have hackathons you can go to, you can get involved in like student communities, so like Microsoft Learn student ambassador community, which Kushbu, Cement, and myself are involved in. So like join those communities, get involved in open source, host events, things like that. That's like experience which you may not get just by being a student at university, but it's something you've gone out of your way to do on top of your studies. So you're not just going to be a walking set of, degree marks and things. You're going to be a person who's, built up a, personal profile, public profile. You have things which you can showcase, contributing to open source. Interns here at Microsoft might actually do that. So it's no different perhaps than just doing it in your spare time. That's what I ended up doing before joining Microsoft. I did like loads of things with trying to do open source. And yeah, it's you basically get that experience beforehand. Yeah. So that's my
Yeah,
comment
I
on that. You don't have to
completely
actually
agree
get a
with
job
Salman
before.
over here. So that's what also I also did. Like in the first year when I was just learning to develop some apps, what I did, I just made sure that any hackathon that was happening, whether it be online or offline, mostly offline because COVID wasn't the thing back then. So I used to go to them and it was like 24 hours or 48 hours of like this continuous pressure and competitiveness that you have. And it was like if I have to implement one feature at home, I was implementing it within a week or two. While in the hackathon, I was implementing four features like that within 24 hours. That kind of intensity when you get around the environment, that helps a lot. And I think you should all participate in more and more hackathons, which helps a lot. Even if you cannot get an internship, that's a great way to work on projects, great work on great
Yeah,
opportunity to work on
hold on.
projects.
I think question is a bit different. What you're suggesting is that you should be involved in some extracurricular activities. But let's say there's a candidate who has not been working beyond academics and they don't have any experience either directly from corporate or from any organization or from hackathons, and that is my take from the question.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess.
So
I guess you.
if they have not been to hackathon, they can obviously do that. But what can they do today? What can they write in the resume? So I would recommend write what you have taken up in your academics, what subjects you have taken up, and every subjects, even in school and even in the universities, have some projects that you need to work upon. So add details about those projects and try to elaborate on them. Try to write down what challenges you went through during those projects or during any curriculum related activity. That would be a great start, and try to basically format your learnings to show that how your learnings are relevant to what you are applying for. That is something I would have done. I can totally understand there might not be a lot of things in terms of experience to add, but once you don't, I mean, if you don't have, everyone needs to start from somewhere. So you can probably focus on learnings and try to write it down, then build up your experience again from the suggested way, as Selman and Simon suggested. If even if you are not directly engaged with any corporation right now or organization right now, you can try looking for opportunities online or any opportunity that university provides.
All right. So would Khushbu and Simba like to add anything on that, or we just move on to our last resume of the day? Please let me know if you want to add anything to that.
I think it has been covered pretty much, and we can move to the next resume.
Yeah.
Yes. So could please Simba and Khushbu take up this one.
Yeah. I think first thing is there's a lot of white space in this resume. You know, it's a nice format and everything, but there's a lot of white space. They could save so much space by compacting what they have. Just looking through their experience, I think impact is something we've been talking about throughout the whole day today. It's more about what they've done in that project and not giving us a story of what they did, what the product was, what the project was. Um, with courses, I don't know. People could say differently for me. If you've got one course there, is there anywhere else you could probably put it? Maybe under education, and not necessarily having a whole section just for one sentence, well, two words really. But yeah, those are the things I think about this one.
Yeah, to talk about other things in this resume, when we talk about the professional experience, they could have easily put that in bullet points. I think that enough experience has been provided, like the information, for instance, for Bhumi NGOs and internship is good, but they could have put that in bullet points so that it would be more readable. And if we can scroll down a bit, uh, again, I think with education they could have saved some white space by consolidating it. Like, it does not look very readable and it's also wasting some white space. And if we talk about the project, then um, again, they're describing the projects and they could have described the uh, role that they played in that project also in bullet points, also little descriptive, for instance 2 to 3 bullet points. So yeah, that would be from my side.
All right. Would Salman and Vipul like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think it's great format. Again, like yeah, maybe the white space perhaps. Um, just just do a general check. Like if you've got duplicate stuff, like at the bottom right, there's front end development for Linktree twice. Um, that's something maybe a recruiter would or HR would pick up on, or the hiring manager. So make sure you've got that checked. I was gonna say just a general comment for resumes in general. If you're a student and you're looking for an internship or graduate role, I think it's perhaps a good idea to put near the top of your resume when your expected graduation date is. Now, like it is because like if you're applying for an internship and you're graduating in July, like they need to know when you can actually, if you're even eligible, because sometimes you might apply for a role and you might think, hey, I've got rejected, but it might not be because your resume sucks, right? Your resume might be brilliant, but you just don't match the eligibility criteria. Maybe you don't have the right date. Maybe you're studying the wrong degree. So yeah, make sure that's I guess preference, but I think that sometimes can help a lot of recruiters if you put like your expected graduation date. And yeah, it's I think the format's nice, good detail, and yeah, just that little check there perhaps in the bottom right.
All right. Thank you, Salman. Vipul, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think the format is good and the content, especially for the experience section, is good. I mean, the details the candidate has mentioned is fine. And if I was interested to know more about the project, I would have surely asked during the interview. So I would say overall resume is good. Obviously, there are some issues with the white spaces. For example, how skills particularly is put on the paper. It seems that they could have optimized space there, and then the education section should have been little upwards even before the courses, especially on this document. It seems the candidate has mentioned courses first and then the education. So I would have at least reversed it. Otherwise, it looks good to me.
All right. So on that note, I think we'll end the session. And thank you everyone for joining in. And so on this note, like I'll just say this one. So like we talked about the weirdest resumes we saw. So while shortlisting, I saw one resume which had like everything from name, birthplace, where are they studying, where are they living, and I was just sort of confused whether it was a resume or a biodata from matrimonial profile. And it was like, so do not add any personal information that is irrelevant except for your email ID, maybe your LinkedIn profile, and maybe your GitHub link, and of course your name and sort of those things. We People don't generally need to know where you live and what is your citizenship status. I think there was one particular resume I saw. I think they clearly wrote down that they're not an Indian citizen, even though they were studying in India, that they were citizens of some other country. I don't particularly remember. So all of these things, they're not relevant at all and they're not necessary. So please don't add those. And so if you've stayed till now, thank you for joining, and thank you for all the four of you for providing such valuable input and your time. And thank you everyone. And I think, okay, so there was one more thing, that in the coming weeks we're having two more sessions. That is one for Git and GitHub, which is with Lavnish, and that will be along with the collaboration from our DTU's IEEE Society. And on the Sunday there will be an intro to data science, which will be I'll be taking it personally. So there, I hope to see all of you there again. And thank you for joining. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And thank you for all of the panelists. Any closing comments you want to add?
Yeah, thank you, Simant, for having us here, and good luck, viewers. The only thing is, resume. While we are interviewing, we surely have fixed set of topics we want to cover during the interview. Might not be very relevant to resume, might be relevant to resume. But as an interviewer, I try to read resume and try to basically ask some questions related to projects and experience first, and it also acts like a warm up for the candidate, and then actually start with the real interview. So that would be my sort of disclosure here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. I would just like to add that there are a lot of resume tips available online. Just go through them, use some templates, go to YouTube, search for resume tips, and then make your resume and just go through it twice or thrice before submitting it to any role. And yeah, all the best.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to say thank you for having me here as well. I think the other thing is get someone to read through your resume before you submit it. Sometimes you make small errors that you don't realize. So have someone to read through it, fresh pair of eyes, and then submit it after that. So yeah, good luck with your resumes.
Yeah. And then I was just gonna say, like, please don't take any of this to be like bad. Anything we're saying, we're here to like give constructive criticism. So like, we think these resumes are all great, right? There's loads of good points. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm trying to like being very picky here. I'm being very picky, and I'm like, it's to give you the most value of your time. So it's not like I'm looking at your resume and be like, oh, this sucks. I'm trying to look at the small things which you can change. Just like, even if you don't have someone to review your resume, like simple saying, you know, make it come back a few hours later, then come back, because sometimes you can get this can get sucked into the space and like completely ignore some things because you're so obsessed with the small details. Perhaps just run it through like Word spell check or something. It will give you good stuff. There's even resume stuff there to help in built into that as well. Apart from that, great stuff. Best of luck. Thank you so much, CMAC, as well, for having me amongst the other panelists. I'm really grateful to be here with all of them.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for joining in. So, on that note, let's just end the stream right here. So, thank you, everyone. And please don't take hard it on your personal self if you feel that your resume was a little bashed. Everything was in good hope to help you improve your resumes. And those of you whose resumes did not get reviewed, I hope you could actually take input from other resumes and try and improve on your own. So, thank you. And on that note, we'll end the stream right here. Thank you.